series that she's doing. So you've been compiling on the.
Well, I should give you tasks like new data. So, well, one thing we did was we used Tableau to export it to views.
Morning.
PDF. That was cheaper with the filter to print PDF. And it's something we found easier because she said last year she created everything by hand using Canva. Canva is what's it called? Canva. It's like a drag and drop builder for files, like pages. So instead of doing that, like literally dragging a text box, typing the number, we use Tableau to calculate automatically. PDF then combined it, it's down she wrote the narrative, obviously. It's been interesting.
That's a great experience. I mean, it's good to
It's something
know those shows. Yeah, right. Sorry.
It's stuff to talk about.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Surprisingly, they kept seeing recruiting.
Yeah.
So they should use first jobs. Like, their families. Good job for the too. It's just like I said, I told you.
That's interesting. So they're, as far as like the most prevalent higher.
Is other side open?
The one in the middle is, but not far enough.
Okay, we should start with the middle door. Just helping.
Like that?
That gives me something to do.
Yeah.
Like I said, I'm not going to take care of that.
I think Alex is on there.
Cheers, you're right. Left it?
Yes.
Yeah.
So you're gonna, I mean, which is fine by me. I can kind of
I'm
look
just
over
going to
your
check
shoulder
right off the bat to make sure that the mic definitely peaks out. So.
And she's on mute right now.
Yeah. Oh, is it on mute on here or on her? She just have it off.
The red indicator.
Oh. How do you turn it off?
Just press.
Glad you know how to do that. Maybe you should do that. I don't.
No.
I'm not good with boards.
Actually, she
knew it.
Yeah.
Oh. Well, there. She should be doing that.
Morning.
Yeah.
Makes me a little nervous that it's picking up sound. Do we have one of the mics on that?
Let's set this here. I don't think someone would take that seat. Okay. We're just going to put something in.
All right. sound, just from the sound that everybody coming in, there's a lot of energy in the room. but I love 9 a.m. sessions for exactly that reason. I am very excited to be here as well today. My name is Amy Harris. I am an associate professor of information systems and analytics at MTSU. Thank goodness, that's the biggest mouthful I have to say today. And in my role there, I also serve the Tennessee Tech Research Program, which is the program that has given birth to the data we're going to be taking a look at today. I'm super excited about the panel. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what Middle Tennessee Tech is, and then spend a few minutes kind of hitting the highlights of the report that we are releasing today in conjunction with the conference on analytics talent in Middle Tennessee. And then after that, we're going to open it up to a great panel discussion. I'm super excited to have our panelists here today because I could spend the next hour and 15 minutes talking to you about the report and the numbers and data. To be honest, I could spend the rest of the day talking to you about those things because I get really excited about it. But my favorite podcast is called Make Me Smart. And I love the podcast because it's all about tech and the economy and really cool things. But the reason I really love it is because I love the philosophy of it. The tagline for the podcast is, "None of us is as smart as all of us." And I think that's absolutely true. And it's one of the reasons why when we release these reports, we pair it with a panel discussion of local technology, staffing leaders, people who can help us make sense of the data and help put the data in context as well. So with that, let me tell you a little bit about Middle Tennessee Tech. So this program is a partnership between my department at MTSU and the Greater Nashville Technology Council. We formally launched this program last year in 2018 at the NTC's annual meeting. And the reason why we started this program is because we felt very strongly that we're analytics people. We want to make data-driven decisions. Well, if you want to think about data-driven decisions related to your talent workforce, you need access to that data. And there are some national organizations that publish reports on the tech workforce that does have a slice that will either focus on Tennessee or maybe focus on Nashville, but we wanted something that was specific to us and it was truly reflective of the community that we have here. And hence this project was born. So our goal is to, if you're an economic development person who's looking for data on the tech workforce here, we've got information for you. If you're an academic institution like mine and you're trying to figure out what degree programs you should be offering and what curriculum you should be designing, we've got data for you. If you're an industry and you're trying to figure out your talent acquisition strategies, anything related to that, we've got data for you. And the data that we work with kind of falls into two buckets. The first bucket is true jobs data, the data that's reported to the state government, ultimately to the federal government, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, actual jobs data. And we produce a deep dive on. And throughout the course of this year, we have taken those deep dives by tapping into the other bucket of data that we work with, which is jobs postings data that allows us to really kind of go in and peel back layers beyond the occupations that you can get to through the jobs data. And really take a look at what are the top skills, what are the most in-demand occupations, what are the most in-demand job titles, and that's the kind of stuff we're going to be looking at today. But those four, we released the healthcare paper back in April. Information security was released in June. Software development was just released a couple of weeks ago at the Nashville Software School's open house. And today we are finishing the first full cycle with the release of the analytics report. So today is awesome for a number of reasons, but it's also a major milestone in this project that we've made it through the first cycle. It's also my birthday, which is really cool because I get to celebrate it with you. It's like it's like the best birthday gift to finally to see something that that is really a passion project come see it through to completion. So it's pretty cool. All right, with that, let's move on and let's take a look at the data. So for this report, we looked at a 12-month span of job postings ranging from July of last year through June of this year. So it's a pretty current data set. Now, this is not the story of jobs, actual jobs like butts in seats in companies here in Nashville. If you want the job story, the jobs report is the one to look for here. This is the story of job marketing. And so you see here, over the course of this 12-month period, there were over 49,000 unique postings that map to one of the 26 tech occupations that we have used to define tech in Middle Tennessee for this program. And I will say that that definition encompasses not only the traditional occupations that you would expect, developer, database, network and computer administration, all of those, but we also include occupations that lie at the intersection of business and mathematics, so that we're trying to make sure that we're capturing analytics, data science, the creative tech landscape here. So that 49,000, those are postings that were targeted to Middle Tennessee, with Middle Tennessee being defined as the Nashville Metropolitan Statistical Area, which is Davidson County and 13 counties that surround it, as well as the Clarksville Metropolitan Statistical Area. So we use those two MSAs to define Middle Tennessee. Then we've got the 26 occupations that we're using to define tech. And then to be able to go in and dive in and tease out the analytics postings, we developed a list of keywords of relevant analytics search terms, kind of worked with subject matter experts, did research to kind of get to a list of terms that we felt that captured the postings that referenced analytics in some way. Of those 49,000 postings, 17% of them contain some sort of analytics search term. The volume of postings in general, and I can say this is held true for every subspecialty that we've looked at, the volume of postings has been steadily growing over time. From 2017 to 2018, we saw a 28% increase in the volume of postings. What's really been interesting is to see what's tracking in 2019. It was the same for software development. Just in the first half of 2019, we've already seen 83% of the volume that we achieved over the course of all of 2018. Now, some of that is because of job growth, but it's also because of increases in the marketing of postings. The postings that get captured through this search are ones that are marketed toward Nashville. When you look at the companies that are returning in the results as the top posting companies, you absolutely see the names of companies that we all know and know have a presence here. But there are companies that are from outside. If they are posting, if they are marketing their postings here, that also shows up in the data. But those can also be relevant. I mean, if you want to understand your landscape, you have to recognize that you're not just competing with the companies that are here in Nashville. You're competing with companies all over the country, and one of the companies is a staffing firm that focuses specifically on helping people find telecommuting jobs. So you can still live in Nashville and work somewhere else, but there's a wide variety that you find there. Here we go. Just looking at the monthly trends, you can see that, overall tech, so that's the unique postings for each month, starting from July the 1st all the way through June of this year. The shapes are pretty similar. There's no, at any given point in time, the previous slide said that there were that analytics postings were 17% of all the postings. That held pretty true for every point in time over the course of the 2.5-year period. In any given month, analytics postings were anywhere from 15 to, I think the upper was 21%. So pretty consistent there in terms of the proportion of postings that were related to analytics. Come on. All right, I'm going to hit the top level key findings. So the top posting company for both overall tech and in the analytics space was Deloitte. They do have a presence here. They also have a global presence. But the important thing about companies is, I give it because people are curious about it. But it's important to keep in context that as the top posting company, the company that had the most postings associated with them, it's still. They were 3.8%. Postings from Deloitte only encompassed 3.8% of the analytics postings, 2.8% of all tech postings. In the analytics space, like if you took the top 10 and added them together, the top 10 companies by posting volume only represented, it was just shy of 20% of overall postings. For overall tech, it was even less than that, around 15%. So what that tells us is that it's not like there's just this one, there's this tight, small group of companies that are recruiting here. It's a bigger volume, it's much more diverse than that. The top occupation, software developers, applications. 24% of the analytics postings mapped to this occupation. 17% of all tech postings did. When you go down to the job titles, because there's a many-to-many relationship between an occupation and job titles. So when you drill down to job title, the top title is business analyst. And business analyst in this data set can be mapped to two conceptual occupation paths. There's the business and financial set of business analysts, which is what this one was. There's also another set that's classified as business analysts for computer and mathematical occupations. And so this one is more on the business and financial side. 6.3% of the analytics postings were for business analysts, 3.6% of all tech postings. Software engineer was number 2 though, so it's not like there's no relationship between the top occupation and the top job title. Business analyst was number 1 in the analytics space, number 2 when looking at tech overall, and then software engineer, and it flipped when you went down to, no, I'm sorry, I misspoke there. Business analyst is number 1 here, and then software engineer is number 2, which ties back into the top occupation. Moving on to skills and qualifications, the number 1 hard skill is SQL. It appeared in 43% of the analytics postings, big shocker, 20% of all tech postings. Having completed a year of this now, it's been really interesting that I'm not shocked at all that SQL is the top skill in analytics. SQL has been the top hard skill that we've examined. So it just speaks to the data centricity of all of the work that we're doing in the tech space. Management is the top common skill. It was referenced in over 50% of the analytics postings, which is a higher rate than we saw in overall tech, but there's still, your common skills are going to be referenced. They're common. They're going to be more common than your hard skills, so we always see a higher percentage associated with that. The top qualification is an MBA here. It was followed, I think, it's really in a virtual tie with the CISSP certification. But the main thing to keep in perspective here is that generally speaking, they're just qualifications, specific qualifications, just aren't referenced at a high rate. And that's another thing that's been consistent over the year of analyzing the data, is that qualifications are nice to have, but to the extent that you would consider it a gotta have by it being stated explicitly in a posting, we haven't seen that as much in the data. Only 2.4% of the analytics postings contained a reference to an MBA, and that was enough for it to occupy the top spot. So that is a very, very quick overview of the report findings. But if you are interested in getting deeper into the weeds, you can download the report at middletentech.jobs. This report is available, as well as every other report that we've published thus far. If you have questions about anything, I've also got my contact information up there, so you can reach out. Or if you use the report, I would love it if you just shoot me a note and let me know how you're using it and what you're doing, because I love to hear the stories. It's one of my favorite things about this conference is that I actually get to hear stories about how the data from this project are being used, and that's always really amazing. One last thing I will say is thank you to our underwriter for this report, AMSURG. Eric, thank you so much for your support. This project doesn't happen, it's not for free. There are costs associated with acquiring the data. And if we want this project to continue, we literally cannot do it without our underwriters. So just wanted to say a thank you there. And with that, let's get this panel going. I will invite my panelists to come up and join me. Unplug. All right. I get to stand at the end. All right, so we'll just start. I'll let everybody, I'll let everybody just kind of go down the line and do introductions. Chad, you want to get us started?
Yeah. All right. We're good?
Yes.
My name is Chad Pankake, and that is pancake, like the breakfast food, but with 2 Ks. And we are a IT staffing and recruiting firm. I'd like to thank you all for having me. Thanks Sherry and Ken and LBMC as we partner with them. But yeah, Chad Pankake, Affinity Search Partners.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm Eric Thrailkill, the former CIO of AMSURG and the current SVP of BI and Analytics for Envision Healthcare. So happy birthday. And got a couple of my colleagues, my new ones and former ones. We all work together through Envision Healthcare. So just a little bit about Envision Healthcare. We're about an $8 billion organization that's based here in Nashville. Focus on physician services, about 25,000 physicians, underemployment, providing staffing services in anesthesia, emergency management, radiology, neonatology, and then on the AMSURG side, 261 outpatient surgery centers in the U.S., 35 states. Thanks for doing this, and a big credit to the Greater Nashville Technology Council and MTSU for putting together important data for all of us. Thanks.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Victor Brown. I'm founder and CEO of Excellent Life, and Excellent Life is at our core a software analytics company, but we're focused on the healthcare and insurance space with the overall vision of improving quality of life for all. So we're taking some very ambitious approaches to healthcare and how we solve some of the challenges in healthcare, utilizing machine learning and AI. And so I'll get more into that story, but a pleasure to be with you all this morning. So thank you.
Good morning. I'm Ken Raetz. I am the shareholder and practice leader of the Data Insights Division of LBMC. We've recently joined the LBMC family, which many of you may be familiar with or work with, provide professional services for financial, healthcare, information security, technology, and that's part of where we come in with analytics, staffing as well, another part of that. We provide custom solutions for companies as well as kind of strategy around how to implement analytics in an organization from an architecture perspective, but also implementation, training, how to really build sustainable analytics over time. And that's kind of my interest here as we talk about the workforce report, because it does take people and it takes a process to build that, to sustain it. So excited to be here and be a part of it. And happy birthday. It's fun that's today.
Thanks. So as panelists, you guys were given an advance copy of the report. I'm curious to hear, were there any surprises in it for you, or how does it kind of measure up to what you experience in your day-to-day? You got? Let you tag in.
Okay, there we go. So I guess one surprise was the NBA qualification, just as a qualification for analytics. I mean, we see that on the finance side, not necessarily as much on the tech side unless it's management, so that was just a surprise. What is not surprising is the growth. I mean, it is every single company we work with, let's say 5 years ago, maybe a mid-cap client, you know, wouldn't value data or the analytics piece as much as they do now. Literally everyone now values it, whether it's huge, you know, Fortune 100 or a mid-cap client. I mean, everyone is going after data, how to use it best, how to implement analytics, but also business intelligence solutions. So it is not surprising the growth that we've seen even this year over the last couple of years.
Yeah, and I think two things stood out for me, among many. Number one, the fact that, and this is probably a terrible use of statistics and analytics, but just visually, it looked like roughly 20-25% of the growth was related to analytics. And so much of this is not even in traditional tech backgrounds. You see many data analyst roles being filled by people who are more coming from a business, maybe a financial analyst, you know, non-technical background. And it's exciting to me because it's also starting to drive more of the technology of analytics toward business value. So that's the first thing. The second, there's been this message that has kind of gone around the last 5 years that, you know, business intelligence is dead, data warehousing is dead, and those were two of the top 3 skills, I think, you know, presented there for analytics. I heard, I think Eric said this once recently, that with all of the talk of data science, which is critical, it's essential that companies are leveraging data in more advanced and predictive ways, the basic kind of blocking and tackling of business intelligence is so essential, and doing that in a way that can be accelerated in organizations is critical. So that was really interesting to see that. Yep.
Hello?
There we go.
Yeah, I'd say I agree with those two comments. For me, it was not surprising, the growth in analytics, and all of us that are in the healthcare industry now regard our data as a key asset to spur innovation for the future. Healthcare, as you know, has a lot of issues in the country, $4.5 trillion in spend, cost, access, and quality issues. Despite that number, can all be improved on. So many of us think that data and analytics is the answer to a lot of what ails healthcare.
Again, I can't agree more than what's already been said, but one of the things that I think is interesting, and I almost struggle to say this in an analytics conference, that surprised me was that SQL was still so important. Because I can remember, you know, 20 plus years ago, starting out as an engineer, how utilizing SQL was really a fundamental tool of pulling in data, and you would just assume, as fast as technology moves, that 20 plus years later, it would be something different, but yet SQL is still very important. So that was kind of surprising to me, just from the longevity that it's had and the importance that it will have even moving forward. The thing that was not surprising, again, so much of what's already been echoed, but also the application of analytics, you know, more so being on the operational side of healthcare and business. So there are some easy wins there that I think is really on the, you know, the cusp of just really a lot of growth in that area on the operations side.
Since you've already got the mic, so you started your career following a very, you know, kind of traditional corporate path, but then kind of struck out from that path to go the entrepreneur route and launch Excellent Life a few years ago. Could you share a little bit with us about what drove you to do that and like how you've built your team, particularly in the area of data analytics?
Sure. So I think I've always been an entrepreneur. I just didn't recognize it until well into my career. So I started out as an engineer, transitioned to product management and sales and marketing, all in the energy space. And so I thought I would retire in the energy space. It's a very specialized industry, highly regulated. So once you work a number of years in the energy space, then you usually can do okay. And lo and behold, about 7 years ago, my dad's health started to change a little bit. He has type 2 diabetes. So I began to get more involved in his health and wellness, and it was alarming because everything I had learned in the energy space was completely opposite about healthcare. And I'll give you a dramatic example. In the energy space, we have what we call critical assets. Some are part of our national security. Think about, let's say, a nuclear reactor. Now, how crazy would it be if we said, okay, we're going to let that nuclear reactor start melting down and then go in and try to fix it? That'd be ridiculous. Catastrophic failure, loss of life. But yet, in healthcare, that same ridiculous approach is the standard that we bear. And so for the first time, you know, I had someone that I loved, that I could see was going through pain, still goes through pain, is really a shell of his former self, all due to type 2 diabetes, but more so his treatment, lack of care, and this was really resonating with me. And I became very passionate about taking a different approach and applying that to protect the human body. Approach that has been proven out in the energy space that theoretically can easily be applied to the human body, which is really a sophisticated electrical network. And knowing that I had not worked in an engineering capacity for many years, I knew that I needed to recruit the best. So I actually put an ad out on Indeed. And the ad that I posted for a CTO at the time, it read like an ad that you might see for a Fortune 500 company. You know, all these requirements and all this, you know, experience and leadership. And at the end of it, it was like, oh yeah, by the way, there's no salary, there's no perks, there's no benefits. You're gonna hate the hours. And so in my mind, I'm like, who in their right mind is gonna apply for this? But if they do, they have to be serious about the vision and about really doing something to affect people in a positive way. And I was fortunate enough to run into Samuel Berntaski, and I hope he's not here because I know I pronounce his last name wrong. I do it all the time. But he's a brilliant guy. He's co-authored, along with his wife, 3 textbooks that are currently utilized in higher education. Actually, the last will be coming out in December. That just recently got certified for 10 years of relevance. His wife spoke yesterday at this very same conference. They're both in Boca Raton. So I have some great people on the analytics side, former experience myself, but I wanted to build my team with the best, but not just the best in terms of analytics, because there's a lot of talent all around. I wanted to build a team of people that were very passionate about having a positive impact in the world. And I'm very fortunate that I have that. Not having any kind of healthcare experience myself, I spent the last 5 years growing that, but I also know that I needed to have that piece of it shored up. So along with my team is a good friend of mine who is a board-certified anesthesiologist. Her and her husband are both doctors. They're in Dallas, Tennessee. But I've known her for over 20-plus years, another brilliant person. And essentially, you know, that's the team. That's why I built the team. And we have worked very diligently to try to move our vision forward. Now our quest is really getting access to resources so we can continue moving forward, which is the plight of many startup companies.
All right. Thanks for sharing. Chad, I'm going to go throw the next question to you. So since starting Affinity Search Partners, you've become a leader in IT recruiting here in the area, you know, helping LBMC and other companies find their analytics talent. Like, where, as the staffing company representative on the panel, what does the market look like from where you sit?
It's definitely white hot. I mean, it is. You know, like we discussed, the job postings, I think Ken mentioned it's 26% of, you know, all the growth is in analytics. And I've seen, especially in healthcare, the skill like Power BI as a tool of choice for BI. I've seen where kind of the bigger organizations are moving, they start out kind of BI focused and then moving into more of a data science and predictive model. But just from a, you know, demand perspective, it is exceptional right now. So.
All right. Following on that, for the rest of the panelists, what do you see as the major issues facing your organization when it comes to recruiting / retaining analytics talent?
Until I saw the keynote this morning, and the gentleman from AWS said to stop by his booth and drop off a resume. So I just think it got a little tougher. I would say we're early on at Envision and really building out a world-class analytics department that will drive the company with data as an asset for years to come. It's in financial, it's in operational, it's in revenue cycle, it's in clinical areas of quality and safety, and recruiting people that are really mission-driven. A lot of what Victor was talking about in healthcare, you can have a sense of purpose knowing that your contribution every day in an analytics area will improve either a physician's life or a patient's life, and a lot of times that's both. I think the retention is going to be difficult for us in the community. What I'm really, really excited about in my role with Tennessee HIMSS is that we're starting to put some energy around Nashville being a hotbed for analytics. And obviously we're a hotbed for music, we're a hotbed for healthcare, and for bachelorette parties. If we could put these conferences together and really have a focus on analytics, we'll arrive at a place where maybe Pittsburgh is with autonomous vehicles, and let Nashville be the home to so many exciting things on the innovation front. Just one more little short commercial. Put April 14th of 2020 on your calendars. It's the Summit of the Southeast, Tennessee HIMSS. We're having a focus on analytics. We've got a live podcast from Senator Bill Frist, who will do a Second Opinion podcast. If you haven't checked out that podcast, please do so. Listen to Anish Chopra, that former Chief Technology Officer of the United States, talk about the role of data in healthcare. We'll be having the Pittsburgh Health Data Alliance that will speak there, as well as IBM Watson Health and Vanderbilt University on a $50 million artificial intelligence research initiative. So check that out, get closer as a community. Let's make sure we build analytics in Nashville to be world-class and up there with our other 3 top industries.
And I'll just kind of add to that, as Chad said, with it being a hot market for analytics, clearly the sort of supply is lower than the demand, and so it's going to be very competitive, and so making sure that your organization has a good culture, has a good team fit, that you're challenging people. I think that's what I find in our team is people want to be challenged. They're not just looking for a job, kind of, again, tied to the mission. It's missional. It's also just, let's face it, and when we're doing this kind of work, there's a bit of that inner nerd in us that just really enjoys the result. And then for people to have a place where they can do that and apply it to something meaningful is really amazing. That makes people passionate about what they do. The other thing is, technology really is changing a lot. And as you said, SQL has kind of been the one constant for sure. But new languages, new tools, new visual tools, for those familiar with the Gartner Magic Quadrant, if you look at it over time, those dots are moving all over the place. And so you have new tools and skills needed constantly. So investing in that through summits like this and training and other mechanisms is really critical to keeping good talent.
Victor?
In my situation, the challenge is truly time, because, I think there are tons of talented people out there, but time is a challenge because I want to spend a certain amount of time understanding that person is purposeful. They are on a mission. They're the type of person that cares about what they're working on. And so you can't derive that from a sheet of paper. So you can have plenty of years of experience in certain technologies, but unless you have a certain amount of character, or integrity, or drive toward achieving, a goal that is aligned with what we're trying to achieve, then that's not a person that's a good fit for the team. And as a person that has all the other tasks to take care of, recruiting that type of person, not being able to offer a wealth of resources that they can easily go out and get in the job market is very challenging in my particular situation. So time and resources are a challenge in my case.
Okay.
Can I add one thing?
Absolutely, yeah.
And also, just in regards to recruiting the top talent, something that I've seen, and similar, I guess, going along with what Ken said, is really knowing your value add. And by that, one of the things I ask clients is, why should someone come work for you? Probably about 90% of the time, we start talking about benefits. We start talking about, PTO, 401k, whatever it may be, but it's really telling a compelling story. I mean, absolutely having a compelling story. And knowing, hey, what problems are we solving? And being able to very clearly articulate what those problems are to draw in that talent. And then finally, to be quite frank, you can do this for free, is move fast. I mean, there are companies out there that may take a long time. No matter who you are as an analytics person, you want to be valued. You want to know someone wants me. And if the process takes 3 weeks, 4 weeks, it doesn't really communicate desire. So you can literally gain a competitive advantage by moving fast on acquiring talent.
So, Ken, you've got a wealth of experience as a business intelligence consultant, analytics thought leader. You know, from your perspective, what is the key to finding the right analytics talent?
So it's funny, anytime somebody says a wealth of experience, it usually means you've been doing this a long time. So I key in on a couple of things, and this probably feels like stating the obvious, but that somebody truly has an analytic mindset, you know, not necessarily a programming skill, though that's part of it, not necessarily a particular kind of technical aptitude, but an analytic mindset. So someone that is a problem solver. I remember back many years ago in computer science study, one of the algorithms they talk about early on is the divide and conquer algorithm. And that can be applied in so many settings where you just simply take a problem that looks larger than life and there's no way you can solve it, and you say, wait a minute, how does this break down into smaller problems? How can I continue moving forward? You know, do I have that mentality that keeps focusing on kind of taking the next step? And tied to that is just simply an inquisitive mindset, somebody that just loves learning. And, you know, that comes with some challenges as an employer, because if you're not presenting opportunities to learn and to grow, that person will eventually want to leave. And, you know, shame on us for allowing that. Book I've read, Extreme Ownership. If I don't know, anybody read that, Extreme Ownership? Okay, small crowd. Great book on just what it takes to truly like own the responsibility in your life and your job and your family, whatever it may be. And there's this sense that no matter what happens, no matter whose responsibility other people may say it is, you always come back to it's on me. And I want people that have that sense that, you know, I have to own this. Even if it means I have to work with other people to help solve it, I'm not letting it go. I'm going to shepherd it, you know, till the end. So that's big. SQL is huge. I felt like my answer to every question was just going to be SQL, because it is so essential to working with data, not just from a kind of a technology like SQL Server, Oracle, DB2, et cetera, but the language of SQL, I think, also helps you understand set-based theory, understanding how to work with data and move data, and so that's a fundamental skill. And then the last thing I'll say, one of the keys has been for me, and it's not really super scalable, but I just meet with a lot of people. People will ask me, hey, you know, I want to talk to you about something. I don't know always what they want to talk about. Sometimes I think, hey, they might be somebody that might join our team. Sometimes I'm just sharing, you know, listening to them and kind of giving guidance on what their next steps could be. And it has nothing to do with my team. But I find when you give and you give into this community, they give back. They really do. And so that's been a critical part for me.
Quick follow-up, I'm just wondering, of all the meetings and all the people you meet, how many of those kind of wind up meeting the criteria for being the right talent?
Many of them, yeah. So, I mean, part of it is, you know, we had a guy, I think he's here, yeah, Spencer. We kind of got connected through LinkedIn, and there you go. Wait, yeah. We got connected, and he's speaking later today, by the way. So, fantastic guy. Many of our team is over here. And, you know, for me, it was, hey, this guy really looks like he just loves doing what he does. And so just sitting with him over coffee and not saying, not a formal interview and, you know, okay, do you meet my criteria? But like, what's behind the person? What are you interested in? You know, tell me about you. And the more we got to talking, it was like, you need to be on our team. And so to tie into the idea of moving fast, I mean, that really is essential in this field, to be able to say and evaluate. And it's tough. I mean, you can't know everything about somebody through a coffee meeting, through an interview process, but refining that so that you can is essential. So, but I do still meet with people that that don't necessarily join our team. There have been a few people that I've met with that end up taking other jobs, and actually they've taken that next step in their journey, and I'm just as thrilled for them when that happens as well. So.
All right, thanks. Eric, you've served as a CIO in many different companies. You're on a brand new adventure now. How has the conversation around data analytics changed over the course of your career? How does that factor into your day-to-day now? Well, you're in a brand new role because of it.
Yeah. No, thank you. Another good question. I'll show my age as well with the wealth of knowledge. So, top employer was Deloitte. I started with a predecessor firm called Touche Rawson Company. Anybody remember that one? Used to be one of the big 8. It was merged into Deloitte, and that's what got me to Nashville in 1983. Participated as a CIO of 3 very different companies, all based in Nashville, all with distributed operations, multi-specialty medical clinics, health services for inmates in prisons and jails, and then most recently 12 years with AMSURG. My background is in accounting, and so I think the business knowledge for me enabled me to be a more strategic CIO, which I really enjoy. What are those investments that we need that will impact the care that's being provided and catapult the company in the future? It's what I love about Envision Healthcare. Where data fits in is we do strategic planning every year. We've got a few colleagues over here and over here on the AMSURG side. And we ask the business departments, or 17 corporate departments at AMSURG that deliver services to the surgery centers, and we say, what is it that could help you in what you do every day to deliver clinical services, marketing, financial, revenue cycle, et cetera, to the business? And they say more data and more information, better information, faster, at the point of care, so we can really make the decisions that we need and find those patterns that are important for us to develop new solutions and be able to innovate. So I'm excited about that as a challenge. And I think, again, where a lot of us in healthcare talk about the number of facilities we have or the number of physicians we have, I think one day we'll be talking about data as an asset and be able to reflect what we've done with the data to really improve the lives of patients and physicians.
So I've got one last question to pose to the entire panel, and then we'll open it up to questions. I think we are all so fortunate to be part of the tech community and the analytics community in particular here. What do you think that we as a community can do better or do differently to get more people into our talent pipeline for the long term?
Yeah, so I think there's 2 levels. You've already heard one of those levels, at least from my perspective, kind of a micro level. I'll speak to the macro first. Obviously, connecting with the universities and the boot camps, Amy, I see Charlie and Mary and others that, some great work going on here in Middle Tennessee in educating and preparing people for roles in analytics. And I've watched that morph from when data science kind of first got really popular and they were pure data science programs and kind of starting to create more programs for data analysts that are sort of more in between the business and IT. So working with those, I think, is essential. Supporting them, meeting with them. We've actually hired a few people as a result of them, and so I think that's critical. And then on a micro level, I'll just go back to that kind of giving, on meeting people for coffee. I keep saying coffee. Everybody on my team knows I love coffee. And so, but it just meeting with people and giving to them and encouraging them to pursue responsibly their passion in data, to take that next step in a way that, is a good way. I was talking with a friend a few weeks ago. He was kind of struggling in a role that he was in, and he was like, I'm ready to quit. I said, well, why don't you hold off for just a second, and let's talk about what that next step would be. And if analytics, what are you willing to invest in that? And I try to challenge people to do that, because that's what future employers want to hear, that you're willing to invest in it and grow. So doing that, you guys are already investing in it on so many levels, and so we should partner with y'all in doing that.
I think one of the things that we can do differently is the way we talk about analytics. And so, we're in a room full of people now that understand technology and analytics. So if we talk about analytics, we might have our ears perked. But outside of this room, there are tons of people that, just the mention of analytics just goes right past them. But when you talk about the application of analytics, that's something that will resonate with more people. So I think when you can talk about the application and the good that you can do with analytics.
Yeah, I totally agree with the comments over here from Ken and Victor as well. It's important for us as a community to share with each other what our findings are. So I'm really, really high on the individual meetings, curiosity and discovery. I think we've got a lot of that going on in Nashville within our own industry in healthcare and outside of our own industry. And it's important to share what we're doing together. And then finally, I'd say Nashville Software School and Greater Nashville Technology Council, Tennessee HIMSS are all organizations that you should be aware of. We've got a good pipeline with colleges and universities that have top-rate programs in town. And circulate a little bit through the community, and time is everybody's greatest asset. It's hard to find time to do things. But if you do that with a purposeful approach, we'll build a stronger community together.
So I would say almost starts young. I think if you're in high school, you probably know there's a career in software development. Like, it's probably abundantly obvious. You don't necessarily know that there's a career in data analytics. You probably do data science because that's coming on, virtual reality or just all these different types of things. But educating even way down below is I think, a priority, right? Here, there's careers here, and it's going to continue to grow. And so understanding that. Two, I would say that's almost immediate is cross-training highly analytical people. So financial analysts, accountants. I mean, there's a melding. We're seeing that right now of, even finance and analytics. But, there are people, I'm sure, within your organization that really could pick it up, very rapidly and could add value to your organization and your teams because they have the core kind of analytic mindset.
So let me ask a follow-up to that, since we've got a little bit of time. I was having the conversation with Rob. I think he's in the room yesterday. There you are, Rob, at Nashville State. Particularly in the developer space, it seems like some of the data has suggested that everybody wants, there's a lot of hand-wringing over the lack of talent, but then you actually look at the postings and they're like, no, we don't want entry level. We got to have it. We need 3 to 5 years. It's like we have these conversations on campus and around. It's like, well, how do you miracle grow 3 to 5 years of experience? I mean, it has to start somewhere, right? Or a general openness to less experience, or to having people from what might not seem like a traditional background come in. Do you see the mentality in the inside of companies and the people making the hiring decisions? Do you see more openness around who would be a good candidate, or is it still kind of following the checking the boxes of, do you have the 4-year degree? Is the degree in in this in particular? What do y'all see? Or I didn't mean to throw you a curveball, but I do think this is the pressing issue. If we try to get people from different backgrounds into the fold, we have to be accepting of them once they show up.
No, I totally agree. I'd say for my own company, we can do a better job with internships and entry-level positions in technology, software development, and analytics. I'm proud that we have an intern from MTSU in our analytics group who's doing just a fantastic job. And it's evidence that, a little bit what you're talking about, Amy, that the talent is really there. The drive to make a difference exists. and a lot of folks that lack the professional and the career experience. And we've got to do a better job, frankly, cultivating that and making that available in the community. I go back to a comment that Chad said, and don't hold it against a big organization if it takes 3 weeks in a hiring process. Everybody wants instant gratification. We'll be working on that where we can do that a little bit faster. And I know for certain we're going to be growing our analytics group at Envision as the corporate entity here in Nashville becomes a bigger part of the nationwide puzzle in this particular growth. But I think it's a challenge for incumbent companies to do better with that entry level approach.
Yeah, and I'll echo that with the focus on interns. So we have several people on our team that are MTSU alums, and I am kind of kicking myself that we didn't actually get them, on our team as interns earlier. Just, they're sharp individuals, and I know would have grown and learned through that experience. So that's just, for me, a focus that I'm going to be looking at over the next few years is bringing more interns into that process. Secondly, I think there's some education for employers, and as one, I know I need to be, everybody's trying to kind of fight that battle of, getting the most experienced person for the right kind of value and compensation. And oftentimes what I've seen with clients that I'm advising that are hiring is they're naming kind of the job description of someone, that is like a senior person, but they're trying to, pay a junior salary. And so really educating them in the value of the person and the role, and making sure that they're compensating appropriately and putting that in. So, again, I say that as an employer. I mean, I have to always balance that, but, we want to make sure people know this is a valuable field to be in, and we just, I think, need to keep working on that.
Victor,
Well, I can't go deep into answering that particular question, but I can point out that the one fear that I had when I mentioned my CTO earlier about possibly being in the room, well, I do see him in the room now, him and his wife, so they probably are going to kill me about the mispronunciation of the name, but if you could raise your hand, they're brilliant people, and he's back there trying to be incognito, but they're good friends of mine, great people. And one of the things I think we could all do a better job at is that beyond what's on a sheet of paper, just understanding the importance of soft skills. Because those are the skills that really have more longevity than just being able to be in a corner of a room, writing code.
I couldn't agree with you more. There are a lot of people, and you guys have a program, folks coming out, and I think it goes back to, like, even in software development has a more, software development, what I've seen, has a more kind of inclusive model, right? Hey, let's bring this junior developer and let's train him up, right? I have not seen that as much with BI and analytics where there's an opening for a junior person. And maybe it's that they need SQL right off the bat, and you know how long it's going to take them to learn that, right? But I think there needs to be some bridge there in order to build that talent up. And I don't necessarily have the answer. That's for Eric and you folks to figure out. But I have seen that. I have seen that gap. So.
All right. We'll open it up to questions now. Yes. Shruti, I should have known. But we've got someone in the back. Scott, can you help run the mic for us, please? Is this the... We'll give this one. All right. We're recording the session, so it's easier to have the questions picked up on the mic.
From your all's perspective, what have you all seen for salaries in the area and trends, and also how they might compare to national averages?
Do you want? I can actually jump in on this one. So if you look at the jobs report last year, across all occupations that we looked at, the median salary was somewhere in the low 70s. I want to say it was 72. Now, of course, that's across a wide variety of occupations. It does actually go in and provide the median for each occupation independently. I just don't remember that. But the thing that we saw last year and in getting the data ready for this year is that our our salaries are tracking about 12 to 13% lower than what you would see, what you would expect to see of a comparative region of our size, while tracking only 5% lower in terms of cost of living. So what we're seeing is that it's the cost of living is going up here, but salaries are not rising to help close that gap. Other questions? Shruti? Yeah.
Hi. I've got more comment / question. I know we talk a lot about lack of talent, and we also are looking for people who are able to connect the dots, are mission driven, and all of that. But as employers, we've got this dormant kind of sleeper cell of PhDs in academia. They're not computer scientists, they're not software developers, but each and everything that we talk about in terms of analytical mindset, teasing out problems into chewable bits, designing hypotheses-based analysis to address these questions, that's like bread and butter of any PhD. Whether it's quantitative sciences, it's biochemistry, it's biology, it doesn't directly translate into traditional tech. But are we falling short as organizations and employers in connecting the dots and being courageous and non-traditional about our choices as well?
I'll start with that one. I think that's an excellent question because it really ties into what I talked about initially, where a lot of the application or analytics is spent on operational aspects of the business, which is not exactly. I think about the human body as, you know, a playing ground that is just fresh, full of possible discoveries. And I'll draw the comparison in the energy space. A lot of people talk about, well, what about privacy of data and getting access to data? All those things are real concerns. However, we already have the data. So if you think about the electrical meters that are on the outside of your homes, you'd probably be terrified to know what we can understand just by the information we're capturing from those meters. Like almost every appliance has a unique electrical signature. And so when we're capturing the data, we can tell where you turn the lights on or off, washer dryers on and off. We can tell interesting things about your patterns and your lifestyles just by the information coming from your electrical meter. So, you know, the utilization of data beyond the operations as it pertains to the human body is a whole arena that we have not tapped into. And I think it's those very PhDs that you're referring to that could play heavily in that arena. And so that's an area that I think is very undertapped and underutilized because so much of the focus is on the operational piece right now.
Add to that, I think it's a great question. And in healthcare, all of you are seeing it, many consultants would call it converged models of care that are forming as this transition from fairly compensating based on a volume of procedures changes to something of value, and value being this combination of quality, safety, and the patient's experience. What's necessary there, and we're looking at it really, really hard, is those PhDs with statistical background that have that really good health economics and outcomes research to be able to take the data that we have today and then reflect on how that might change as those models of care are forming very, very rapidly. You're seeing it with provider organizations partnering with life sciences, with provider organizations partnering with payers, with retail, CVS, Walgreens, and Walmart, with new models of care that are built around very different financial models than those exist today. And I think it's a good point. That kind of thinking, scientific thinking, as well as health outcomes research will be very important.
Yes. Where? Oh, there we, oh, you got it. Okay, gotcha. We'll get you next.
So having been at Walmart, Nike in the past, see Amazon, Microsoft, large companies coming to Middle Tennessee, what can we do as leaders to help retain that talent beyond the compensation? Because big companies coming in, they may be able to pay more, and it's not always about the paycheck. So what are your thoughts there?
So I realize as I'm sharing this, I have, again, many members of my team, so I'm going to be evaluated on how we're doing this, but I'm going to step out anyway. So, you know, compensation does have to be there. I think, you know, it's a conversation we have pretty early in the process because I don't want somebody joining our team and taking a salary that may not compete with an Amazon salary, and then the next offer comes along and they leave. So that has to be a part of the discussion. But, you know, I talked about a bit of the culture and kind of giving, you know, people an opportunity to do something amazing, respecting people, the people. So, you know, we're not true family in the sense that, you know, family, but we should treat each other that way and be respectful. And when people, you know, have loss, when they're hurting, when, you know, they have challenges, you know, having time to address that is essential. Having fun with the team, you know, I think we're due for a little bit of a fun event where it's been a little while for us, so doing that as well, and you know, the sort of secondary benefits, the extra things that come along in addition to sort of monetary, you know, are going to be essential as well, you know, making sure that the people have access to different things, discounts and other things. So, but I can't understate the value of the sort of the culture and the opportunity that people are given. And then I would just say some people want to be a part of a larger organization, and then some people don't. And so just figuring that out early in the process, you know, we've had people, and I was with LBMC before, you know, where they leave and then they come back. And so just giving space for people to do that, recognizing they need the room to do that. You know, if it's the right place for them, they will come back and or stay, and shame on me if I haven't figured that out, you know, for our team, so.
Anybody else?
I just might say, just to point out one interesting statistic, workers in my generation had on average about 4 jobs in their professional career. Those that are out of school today will have on average maybe 14. And we look at that and say, is that a lack of loyalty to the employer, or is that a quest for something deeper, both professionally and some sense of meaning and purpose? And I agree. I think if we could find that, and as a large company, and still retain those that are driven, that are growing professionally, that are curious, that like to discover, and constantly are in an organization that's learning every day, then we'll have a better opportunity to retain and compete. And frankly, I think Amazon coming into Nashville is a good thing for us. And I think it makes us all better. It makes us compete harder. Somewhere in the back of my mind, I think that was a little bit of purposeful location by Amazon, recognizing the healthcare assets and the wonderful place that we have as a community that have going on here. So I think we have something pretty special that could just be leveraged by those that are coming in. It was interesting on the top employers in analytics that while 2 of those on the technology side were healthcare companies, that were 4 on the healthcare side relative to analytics, including 2 large payer organizations that don't have a significant presence here in Nashville. So it's happening.
Sure.
And I think it goes back to a little bit of kind of knowing your value add. I've found it's really all about the leader oftentimes, and understanding ultimately what your people want. If you have interesting problems, they have a clear path and a progression, which is another kind of little harder thing in the data world, but kind of giving that vision, right? Where do you want to be? Where do you want to go? Understanding your team. You know, some people are just going to leave and they're going to go for an extra, whatever, 20K. But the people you want are going to respond to that. And they're going to say, I want to go where you're going. And I want to go where you're going to take me. So I would say leadership and understanding the needs of your specific team are huge.
Okay.
Maybe this is a question for Amy. How does Nashville compare to other cities in terms of supply of analytics talent, in terms of the number of PhD data scientists or analytical skills with master's degree? and various categories. The perception, I run a national practice and we have consultants all over the country, and the perception is not as good as Georgia Tech. You can go higher, PhDs. So how does Nashville compare from a credential standpoint?
So the way, I don't have the specific answer off the top of my head is the response. There are some metrics that we get from the vendor from our data where they'll kind of do a green to red on like whether or not a particular area is a hotbed of talent. It doesn't necessarily compare us to a specific city. It's more of a comparison to a region of our size. I could play around with some stuff after the session and give you a bit more of a specific answer, but we are not perceived as a hotbed of tech or analytics specific talent. That doesn't mean the talent's not here. I just think that we've just got a lot of room to grow. We're still a really well-kept secret, which I hope we can, at least in terms of the amazing tech talent that we have here, and I hope we can keep it that way because that helps us keep the good people here. Yeah. I'm sorry. She needs to get the mic next. I'm sorry. Oh, well, we could have let you ask the question. Yeah, we'll go that way.
Okay, so I want to go back because we talked just a little bit about non-traditional paths to analytics. And Chad, I think you've been underselling how effective you are at finding people for this. Because we had quite an experience at HCA where we actually brought in a lot of folks who didn't have traditional backgrounds, who didn't understand or didn't know how to do SQL, but knew how to solve problems. And so we found that we could train people on SQL and some of those other skills inside of a very short amount of time. In fact, there's folks in this room right now that were part of that cohort of folks who came in. But Chad, the question I want to pose to you is, what talents did you look for? What kind of characteristics did you look for as you're finding people who transitioned really well into that, who didn't have technically the right skill set, but who within 3 to 6 months suddenly had the right skill set and were absolute rock stars?
Well, I got to confess, Sean, you gave me the blueprint on that, so of what to look for. But really, what I saw or what I see is, one, highly analytical people, and I kind of discussed that with financial analysts, accountant, PhDs, and then secondary, because analytics and data is often you're interacting, right? You're understanding, you're solving problems. You absolutely have to be able to communicate. And so there are people out there that are in various fields that have that, right? They're analytical and they can communicate. And that right there, you're going to find a successful, analyst or, even developer. But those are kind of the two, I guess, critical skill sets as I look for folks that are maybe outside of this career field right now, is highly analytical and they can go into a room and present, period. So.
Okay, yes.
So my question is pretty much kind of related to the previous question. And in the panelist's opinion, what is like the thought on like boot camps, software schools, as far as people gaining skills and not necessarily being from a tech background? We have a lot of programs now in Nashville that's aiming to kind of increase the amount of talent that's coming out. So what are you all's opinions, and how are your like recruiting efforts including that?
So I recognize several people in here are representing some of those boot camps. So for number one, building a relationship with them is essential. The obvious would be we're hiring from them, right? So that would be a great statement to make. But I think building relationships and connecting. So I think sometimes the talent coming out of the boot camps fit really well into perhaps a larger organization where they can be part of a team and then continue to grow. So one of the things that they typically do well, from what I've seen, I've not been through it myself, but have talked with folks from Nashville Software School, Mary back there, and with Sean with DataU, that they do real-world projects, and I think, I keep saying the most important thing, but along with all these other skills and training that people can get, real-world application to applying these skills is essential. Solving a real-world problem with perhaps some real-world timing. You don't have months to complete something sometimes, but a small amount of time. That added pressure that comes along with it is essential. So they're doing a good job of applying that. So I think partnering with them to either hire and or connect where there are positions, and then also helping to feed that pipeline. I think where the boot camps fit in really nicely is for people wanting to transition from one, very major kind of different area into more of an analytic technical area. And that's what they're doing well. So, and then the other thing I see is, and I've had, again, many conversations with Nashville Software School, is continuing to adapt, that they are continuing to adapt and listen to the employers and listen to kind of the market and the skills that are needed, and and adapt their programs and innovate in that area. And so advising into that, just being willing to speak into that and share experience, I think is helpful as well.
One item here. I'd be remiss if I didn't bring this up. Anybody outside healthcare? Just show your hands. For those of you that have great analytical skill sets and are outside the industry, Tennessee HIMSS, in partnership with Belmont University, has a 14-week certificate course. The fall cohort just started. The spring cohort will be coming up in January. And it's a great way to really understand the industry from 14 different leaders who present this on Monday nights for a 3-hour time period, and built to really supplement the workforce that comes in through recruiting or from colleges and universities from other industries into healthcare. So I might recommend that one as well.
All right, we've got 2 minutes left. One last question.
Yeah, several people kind of asked, what could we do? 3 years ago, the Brookings Institution came into town and begged us to take leadership in health IT and related fields. They warned us that there were 12 or 14 other cities that were already in motion. Pittsburgh, which has been mentioned several times here, is one of the foremost of those. Salt Lake City, they're all over the place. Don't humor me on this, but do you think this data stack that we're talking about could be the flying wedge for Nashville, at least in healthcare, that we could use and quickly establish authority in that niche? And again, be realistic, but we've got a lot of leverage that a lot of people who are paid a lot of money to go find out think we're not using. And I'd like to hear your thoughts on that.
I'm going to start with that one, and thanks for asking it. For those of you that haven't read it, August of 2016, that Brookings report came out from the Metropolitan and Cities Division. You can get it from Brookings online. It's a great report, and it asks the question, the central question is, could Nashville leverage its 50-year history in health services to build health IT and an innovation hub for the future of healthcare as we know it? And frankly, it concluded that the region and the city have a very fragmented ecosystem and not well connected, and maybe not working together as much as possible. Reference Pittsburgh. We'll be having the Pittsburgh Health Data Alliance here on April 14th of 2020 to talk about what they're doing with UPMC, Carnegie Mellon, and AWS, and enabling data to exist to build innovation and solutions around that's incubating companies and projects every day for a community that used to be 40 years ago a steel town and is radically changing. I'm optimistic. I do think that there are some challenges, and they're steeped in the proprietary intellectual mindset of a lot of the provider organizations that are based in the community. How do we unlock that? I think it's challenging. I think events like this are very, very helpful. I think more individual sharing of what we're doing to just inform and enable other companies to participate, and incumbent upon us, large organizations, to have a better relationship with entrepreneurs and startup companies that are developing really interesting solutions that could drive healthcare further. So a great question, a significant challenge. Jury's still out. I'm optimistic.
All right. Well, we are a couple of minutes over time, but thank you so much today for the wonderful questions. Please give our panelists. I'm sure y'all have a great rest of the day. Oh, thank you.